not that that's saying much, because usually kids are maniacs, but like, so I'm not going to get too much into, I'll kind of more answer questions, because about 50 to 70% of you know me and know what we do, so I'm not going to, I apologize for the guys I don't know, but I'm not going to get too deep into it. I run an organization called Artists for Israel, and we do the school programs like Allison was explaining, but our main focus is twofold. We do advocacy work for Israel by bringing artists to the country and by doing events, and we allow for work that they create to talk about Israel for us and to kind of emotionally bias people towards Israel before they start hearing about the information, the facts and figures that other organizations do. So we kind of like we till the ground for the other seeds to be planted. And we work with all mediums of art, and we work mostly with non-Jewish artists because they're the best advocates and representatives of Israel, because to others it doesn't seem like they have an ulterior motive for supporting the country. And then we work on social service and humanitarian projects. The reason for that is because I just got frustrated in doing advocacy, because it's not something you can quantify and prove. So we do now social service, humanitarian work, so I know at the end of the day, whatever we do is actually materially directly benefited Israelis in some way. One of the biggest programs we do is I bring these artists from around the world. We've worked with like 5,000 artists in various ways, but I've brought about 100 artists from different countries, we're now at 22 different countries, to Israel to paint murals in needy communities, on bomb shelters, in buildings that have been hit by rockets. So not only do they paint these murals and immediately benefit the communities there and transform the communities, they also post these images on their social media, and these artists all have 1 million+ followers. So instantly these images of Israel are getting pushed around, and people are just seeing something cool. You guys are very caught up in, especially now, with the debates around Israel and kind of the intellectual esoteric conversations. 80% of the world doesn't do that. They see a pretty picture of art in Israel and they go, wow, that's really cool, I want to be part of that. And so now we're at a place, so I just brought a Palestinian artist who worked under the banner Artists for Israel, a Japanese artist, Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, and American. And their stuff gets put around, and Israel's now become one of the top 5 graffiti destinations in the world. So if you're anyone in graffiti and you want to make a name for yourself, you have to go to Israel. And the only way to do that, because everyone's afraid of the country, is through us. So it's really cool. And we've actually stopped working in other art forms in a lot of ways because graffiti has become such a big thing. And so it's great to see that. I'm going to be kind of all over the place. The second thing that we do, which is our strong humanitarian project, is that mess back there called the Healing Arts Kits. We were in Israel once, and we were in the north. And this is when the Syrian fighting first really started to get intense, and they were shooting rockets into Israel. No one knew that. And we were on a kibbutz out there, and these rockets landed, somewhat close, and the ground shook, and the artists all hit these big tough graffiti artists that hit the ground and cowering. And this little girl said to them in the most monotone, static voice ever, she goes, "It's okay, you get used to it." And the artists were like, "No, that's not cool, you shouldn't get used to it." So she said, "Well, I know about art therapy." So we brought in some psychiatrists, art therapists, psychologists, emergency medical first responders, parents and teachers, and we created an emergency mental first aid kit, an art therapy kit, which is in all the bomb shelters in the south, all the kibbutz team, it's on the ambulances, and it's soon going to be in the schools and in police cars. And it's given to children immediately after a rocket attack, or now the ambulances use it for everything. They use it for fires, car accidents, whatever, and it's starting to be proven to stop the onset of new cases of post-traumatic stress disorder, which has been amazing. And we're constantly looking for places to get information, places to get materials for that, and everything else. And then I'll take a step back and I'll just take questions. But you guys are familiar with controversy around Israel? You guys dealt with any of that? No? Yeah, so it's, what are you talking about? I just want you to know that I spoke to, so it's funny because I have nothing to do, clearly I do not have children, right? Like I can barely take care of myself. I'm not going to subject a child to me. But when it happened, I know this community clearly. I know everybody here almost. And I know the guys who are leading the charge, for lack of a better term, against this community. And I spoke to them and I said, listen, I know the community there, I don't know what happened. I'm not going to say certainly that any one thing happened, but I trust these people. Why don't you talk to them? And they spoke to Perry, and I've never heard Perry actually said to me, he talked more than her, so the fact that that's positive. But, it was, and we for the longest time had a lot of problems because people didn't understand.
I'm his best friend now, by the way.
Oh, you guys
He just sent me an email today.
Did he really?
Yeah.
For the longest time, hold on. So what confused me was how definitive they were about what was happening here. And I said, have you even been to Durham? Like, do you know where to get the best ice cream in Durham? Like, if you don't know where to get ice cream here, like, you can't have an opinion about what's happening. And that's what we're seeing is this polarization, right? Everything, you're either pro-Israel or you're anti-Israel. You gotta be on one side of the fence and it's black or white. The reason we bring these artists is because, this is sort of a kitschy line, artists don't see things in black and white, they see colors. Isn't that good? Yeah. Feel free to use that line, right? They see shades. And so we bring them there because they're able to communicate those colors to other people. And it's great because for so long we were a radical organization. They were like, graffiti, what does that have to do with Israel? How does that help Israel, right? Some weird tattooed freak is talking to us like, this is not like, we want a guy in a kippah, sorry. We want a guy in a yarmulke, like, we want him to wear a tie, and we want him to use big sounding words that our children won't understand. But the thing that's happening now, and what you have the opportunity, and what's great is, Allison heard of me through Bob, but she didn't know much about me, and she said, you have complete freedom with the kids. And I said, sucker. And I tried not to curse the whole time. And the kids, and so what all we wanted to tell them is that they have the opportunity through this controversy to come in and to do things and to make their mark and kind of empower them that when they want to speak up about Israel, if they do, and whatever they want to say, that they have that opportunity and that you don't need to fit into this cookie cutter mold. So anyway, I said a lot of things that don't necessarily relate to each other, so I'll shut up and answer questions, or you don't have to ask any, we can just look at, you can come straight in.
Greg, what is your perception of the them and us, the black and white? I mean, it's interesting that you see it that way.
It's funny because there's a movement now in Israel that's kind of, to use common parlance, I hate the idea of left and right wing. I hate that concept because it's bifurcating. But the idea that you're so right that we're left. So there's a big movement, and I'll just tell you personally, organizationally we have no politics, because that's how I get to get people to do what we want. I'm personally very right wing. Those who know me know this. I have a tattoo of Zev Jabotinsky on my arm. But we're brothers and we're cousins, and we need to work, and that the problem is not the Jews versus the Arabs. The problem is not the Palestinians versus the Israelis, and that creates this kind of misconception which is insulting to both groups, as if neither one can live without the other. They're only defined by their relationship to each other, which isn't true. So my artists see it, and this is how I think a great way to talk to the next generation is they see it as, I say, listen, you know who's at fault here? They're like, who? And they're waiting for me to say, oh, the evil Palestinians, or oh, the evil Israelis, and I'm like, the British. And everyone hates colonization. Everyone hates colonization. So they get it. I'm like, listen, this is a war created by the Saudis and the Americans. And you gotta say the evil rich people, because artists hate rich people. So the evil rich people who are trying to control the Middle East, and they're pitting these people against each other, and that's not the case. In fact, if you go to Israel, you see the difference that there's Arab Israelis, there's Palestinian Arabs, there's Palestinian Israelis, there's Jews, there's Christians, there's Druzi, there's et cetera, et cetera. And I think that the idea is that that's what exists here too. So when you ask these kids questions, what do you want to draw? What represents Israel to you? They're younger, so a lot of it is kind of silly things, but a palm tree, a beach. But you also get peace, and there's just so many voices, and I'm hoping that those voices start coming out.